Yeah. What's your quick question?
Is it okay, Maharaj, or you want to start first and then
No, no,
I
it's
can
fine.
ask?
You can ask the question.
Okay, Maharaj, I wanted to know from the fake question paper which you gave. There was
Uh-huh.
one question. There was one
Uh-huh.
question where it's asking that Dhritarashtra um, uh, was in anxiety because he thought that his son Duryodhan would compromise with Arjun. And I'm
Right.
asking this question, Mara, not because I got it wrong, but for my curiosity that. But why was he fearful, Mara? Because when Duryodhan is saying that I will not give you even space which is tip on the needle, then why was Dhritarashtra thinking that he would compromise with Arjun?
I'm not exactly sure. We can talk about, I can think about that for a minute, but if we take a look at what it actually says, in the let me wind it up to that part there. Uh, yeah, here we go. So these are the things he feared. And if you look in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 1,
Mhm.
text 1,
Next.
you'll
Okay.
see that that he, in Prabhupada's purport, Prabhupada mentions that. Let me go to Bhagavad Gita. I, I have to apologize here because right now something happened to my computer yesterday. It's always nice when you do different things and go different
Mhm.
places that your computer decides to change itself. So I had a setting where basically I had a nice sort of beige color to the background, but it decided that it didn't like that anymore after we
Mhm.
went through all our stuff yesterday at the room downstairs, and now it's to a white setting, which is kind of blinding to the eyes, but here it is. This is the uh, first verse of
Mhm.
the Bhagavad Gita, and no, I'm at 2:1. Sorry, I have to go back another chapter. Yeah.
You try it sideways?
One
See
minute.
one.
He's answering my question. One minute.
About what?
Yeah.
Which we got it wrong yesterday.
Yeah, okay, here on this, if you look at this paragraph here, the word dharma kshetra, place where religious rituals are performed, is significant because on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present on the side of Arjuna. Dhritarashtra, the father of the Kurus, was highly doubtful about the possibility of his son's ultimate victory. In his doubt, he inquired from his secretary Sanjay. What did they do? He was confident that both his sons and the sons of the younger brother Pandu were assembled in that field of Kurukshetra for a determined engagement of war. Still, his inquiry is significant. He did not want to compromise between his cousins and brothers. He wanted to be sure of the fate of his sons on the battle. So that's where I took that concept. You know, when we do the fake tests, I like to put sort of tricky questions in there to make devotees think. And since you're not losing any points one way or the other, it's kind of a free place to do that. And on the real test, by the way, you will not
Mhm.
have true and false questions. You'll be asked to fill in blanks and to list things and stuff like that. So it'll be a different kind of test. But with true and false, since you're restricted in so many different ways on just true and false, a lot of times people can guess what the right answer is by the way you word it. So I do things to make it so that you really have to know what's there to get them right, at any rate.
No, Maharaj, I liked it. I liked it. That's why
I'm evil,
Right. No, this is very nice, Maharaj. Every day, fake test, that would really help us to really absorb inside. That's nice.
Right. And, if you get used to taking these fake tests, then when the real test comes, it won't be such a shock, You'll be kind of used to it. And I think that helped the groups before that I was doing. So that's why I'm continuing the same process now, that I am, doing the fake tests. And one of the things I wanted to mention right off the top of the out the chute here is that if you take a look at your books, the Bhakti Sastri student handbooks, you'll see that there is something called, you'll see the Purva Swadhyaya, and I'm just trying to call your attention to it. Let me find out where it is.
The chapter 1 questions, most of the questions is answers in the
it's on page
test.
28.
Page 28.
No, not most of them. They're all. Every one of the questions that you get on your full test, on your actual test, will come from the Purva Swadhyaya. And that's why I'm really focusing on the Purva Swadhyaya, so that you'll have a good chance at doing at least the closed book part of the test. As I said, most of your score will come from the essay, right? But there's a good chunk of it that comes also from how you do on the closed book test. The essay is open book. The questions and answers, that's closed book. So that part will be closed book. But you have to, if you study the Purva Swadhyaya, you will do good there. If you can answer most of those questions, you'll go through a breeze on the actual test, because those tests will come from there.
Maharaj, you did really, really extra hard work, and this is helpful for us for these small questions, because most of the question is here. Even if we make mistake, you did the correction in there, so that helps. And I have one question, Maharaj. Actually, it is a fake test, but I get confused a little bit. Duryodhana and Dushasan about the Bhima's promise, Bhima's pro. So I was like a little confused. Was the slide was mistakes, and from that, but this is right in this fake test. So I made mistake because I saw over there. Even you told yesterday this should be Dushasan, not the Duryodhana.
Right.
Yeah.
So because we had that whole thing, you actually figured it out.
Yeah,
because of that.
I was a little bit confused, so I made like 2-3 question mistakes over there. But anyway, it's a fake test.
Yeah, right. So these are good. All these things help us to do things appropriately, and it'll be easier for the real test. I'm taking down the attendance right now. Everybody that's here right now gets a 10 for attendance today.
Thank you.
And I guess Madan Gopal, that's actually Marcus Ormsby, Arjuna, right? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Everybody.
Welcome. So now we had a former Arjuna and a present Arjuna. So I'm glad you're Madan Gopal now, so that I don't have to get you confused with our other Arjuna, who is from Newburgh up there, who's here too. Okay, so
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I'm joining with Bhakti Vasula on his.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. So I didn't see you there. Okay. If
Okay.
you all could do me a favor and, more or less keep the screens on unless you're really having a bandwidth choking issue, because that way I can get face feedback. It's really hard to talk to black and white letters, I know you're there.
Also, also Maharaj, I was having some trouble with my phone yesterday, and so then I also joined with Bhakti Vasula towards the end as well.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out what was going on there, but
Yeah.
I'm happy everybody's here. And unless you may be in a place where you've got really narrow bandwidth and you have trouble. If so, then, go back to the black screen. But I'd really like to try to see everybody's faces while we're doing this. Okay, so there are all total 10 of us, but 2 are not here. One I don't know about of those 2, which is Tina, who emailed Matuna much earlier in, and he just gave me the contact about 2 days ago, so she may not be able to ramp things up and pull around to be able to participate, so she may not show up. But Samantha says she's going to show up, but she works tonight, so she's not here. And yesterday she had really a special thing. She had to go visit some relatives for, so we'll see how that works out. But everybody else appears to be here. And
Gokul is Shri Mataji. Her name is Geeta also.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, that's right. I have to add her because she's not. She makes 11. Okay.
Yeah. Get her. She's going to get the recordings.
So she works tonight, she was saying, right?
Yeah, she's a nurse in the hospital. So one day she is scheduled.
Right. One of the things I need to do is maybe you can drop me in the WhatsApp chat everybody's email, because I looked at those emails on the fake tests, and you guys are really cryptic, all BV something or weird numbers. I couldn't figure out who was who. I thought I would be just able to.
I'll send it.
Yeah, just tell me, drop it when you don't have to do it right now, but sometime before next week, as early as possible. Drop me a thing in the WhatsApp that tells me what your email address is, and that way I'll know that this person belongs to this email address. I thought I would just be able to figure it out, but I really couldn't. I was mystified. Okay, so all right. So now I'm just going to do a quick obeisances. I do my full pranams and everything, usually before we start the course on the very first time, and then after that I do a kind of a modified version of it, so we have a lot more time for questions and answers and all that. So Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shinivadi Paschacha Deshatarine. Hare Krishna. So let me see if this is going to cause things to blow up. Does it? No. Good. So now it's recording me as well. All right. So what I want to do is to start off with an overview now of Chapter 2. Now I'm going to have to turn that off. It's driving me crazy. I'm hearing myself twice. Okay, so And also, please, when you get the opportunity, if you haven't done it already, I have 8 people who filled out the fake test, so that means somebody didn't. And at least a couple of somebodies didn't. So if you haven't done that yet, please do it. Again, the fake tests are fake because they don't count. But it gives me a sense of where you're at, what you know, what you don't know, what's confusing. And it gives you all a sense of what the questions are going to look like on the final score.
What is the pass score, Maharaj? What is the pass score?
For what?
For the fake test. Minimum. What is the score minimum?
Oh, passing score for the fake test?
Passing score. Yeah.
I don't know. When you're in the 60s, that's kind of low. But when you're up above that, it's usually okay, you know.
Okay.
I thought you were saying password. So first.
Like passing score.
You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so now here we are looking at Chapter 2. This is Chapter 2. By the way, this newest grouping of slides, I just dumped it into your WhatsApp chat group. And also, yesterday's video is up there already. So if you want to go back over it, that's also there. The whole
I saw
thing is there.
Yeah.
And the new section of slides, because the previous section of slides didn't have Chapter 2. This one does. And so here we go. And so I'm going to give you a couple of different slices of how Chapter 2 breaks down, and then you can kind of choose your own way for what makes it easier for you to remember. But here we go. So we have from 1 to 10 is where Arjuna is still doubting. It's a continuation from Chapter 1. Arjuna is still describing why he doesn't want to fight, and finally he kind of gets quiet and says, but I want to hear from you, Krishna, but at any rate I'm not going to fight. So that's 1 to 10. Now at 11, Krishna takes over. And 11, we have fight. There's no death for the soul. So from 11 to 30 is what I call the not the body section of Chapter 2. That's where Krishna explains how we are not our bodies in so many different ways. He gives Arjuna so many examples. And now from 31 to 38, Karma Kanda, he says, by prescribed duties gain material sense enjoyment. This is a kind of mysterious section of this second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The reason it's mysterious is because for some reason Krishna appears to be telling Arjuna that to get pious credits and to be liked well in society, you should do your duty, which is, you know, arguably all sort of mundane and material, but nevertheless Krishna is explaining it to Arjuna because he's using all angles to win over Arjuna. So this is kind of a, you know, do your duty because people will laugh at you section here, 31 to 38. And then Buddha Yoga, 39 through 53, is fight but without any reaction. You know, so that's the section from 39 to 53. And finally, the fifth section is what Burijan and the MIHE people call Stita Pragya, become fixed in transcendental consciousness, which is 54 to 72. Now, maybe you've recognized that this chapter is a big one. And actually, there are two, count them, big chapters in Bhagavad Gita. One of them is Chapter 2, and the other is Chapter 18. So the first chapter is called a summary chapter. Contents of the Gita summarizes its actual title. And the 18th chapter is also a summary. And it's called, the conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. So that's Chapter 18. So we have two, I call double wide chapters. All the other chapters are somewhere in between 20-ish to 40-ish verses, but not Chapter 2 and not Chapter 18. those have almost twice the amount of verses that all the others have. That's why I call them double wide. Not only are they twice as big as the other chapters, they are summarizing chapters. They kind of try to put the whole thing into a perspective, make it a summary. So that's chapters 2 and chapter 18. Now, one time when I was hearing about public speaking, the people who were talking about how to make presentations before people said that a good way to do it is you explain to people what you're going to tell them, and then you go ahead and you make your presentation, and at the end you summarize what you have just told them. And so what that boils down to, he put it in a funny way. He said, you tell them what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, and then you tell them what you just told them. So it appears that the Bhagavad Gita is using that strategy. So Krishna's telling Arjuna what he's going to tell him, then he tells Arjuna, and then at the end he tells him what he just told him. So you have chapter 2 is a summary chapter. Then from chapters 3 through chapter 17, Krishna actually unfolds his entire description. And then with chapter 18, he comes back and summarizes it, and the Bhagavad Gita ends. So you have these kind of ways of putting it all together. So in this way, you can kind of get a sense of what the structure is in Bhagavad Gita. Of course, in this unit, we're only going to go over the first 6. We're not going to go from 7 through 18. We're only going to go from 1 to 6. So that's where we are. And this is our, as we just said, our first overview of chapter 2. Arjuna's doubts, which are from 1 to 10. Krishna's "You're Not This Body" section, 11 through 30. Duties need to be done or else you will lose your place in society. That's 31 through 38. Buddhi Yoga is how to work without becoming entangled. And finally, the last part, Sthita Pragya, Arjuna asks about 4 characteristics of an enlightened person, and Krishna explains it. So that'll be that section. Now here's another way. Well, this is not another way. This is another section. Arjuna's doubts and surrenders. You're not this body. Duties of Kshatriya. Buddhi Yoga. And Arjuna's 4 questions. So that's another way to look at it. Whichever way helps you the most. You won't be asked specifically for breaking down these sections. But if you understand these sections, you'll be able to deal with them much better. So now here's another way of looking at the flow of chapter 2. Krishna, after Arjuna speaks, Krishna gives Arjuna a little bit of the sauce. And then Arjuna explains some more further doubts. Then Arjuna surrenders but remains steadfast that he's not going to fight. Then Krishna explains the body, soul, spirit, and matter. Then Krishna explains the duties of the Kshatriya. Then Krishna explains Buddhi Yoga. Then Arjuna asks 4 questions, and Krishna answers those 4 questions. So that's another way to look at the flow. I think that's my last one. Yeah. So, all right. Any questions about any of that?
Haribol, Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Haribol. So what you've broken down, we're going to be doing 1 through 6 chapters.
Right.
So you've just given the overview of the whole Bhagavad Gita, or
what I just gave was the overview of only this one chapter, chapter 2.
Chapter 2.
In one sense, it is an overview of the whole Bhagavad Gita, because we said chapter 2 is a summary. But just for the sake of indexing and sanity, we're going to just say that this is only chapter 2.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj. Okay.
Okay. All right. So the next thing that I want to roar into here is we need to go over the reasons Arjuna did not want to fight. This will be a question, and you will have to name all those reasons probably. Hint, hint, likely. So these are Arjuna's main reasons: compassion, enjoyment, fear of sinful reaction, destruction of dynasty, and indecision. Now, from our esteemed Bhakti Sastri group here, can someone tell me what we mean by Arjuna objecting based on compassion? So we'll start off with volunteers. If we don't get volunteers, I'll volunteer you. Why did Krishna not want to fight because of compassion? What does that mean exactly? So spell it out for me.
Because that's his family, and he doesn't want to be in direct conflict with his family members.
Okay, it's his family. How does that differ from enjoyment? Because that also has to do with his family. Or for that matter, destruction of dynasty.
Because I think compassion has more like caring, like affection towards them.
Right.
Also, Maharaj, Pushpanjali Dasi, also enjoyment would be feeling like, what am I saying? Compassion. Compassion is like you have feelings. You feel for the others. You feel for them. Perhaps empathy or sympathy. Empathy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maharaj,
Okay.
enjoyment basically means, Maharaj, like basically you enjoy when you have relatives or you have friends around you.
Right,
so Arjuna was thinking that if there are no relatives, there are no friends, then how will I enjoy, or who do I enjoy with? So that's why he never wanted to fight.
Right. That's a different one from compassion. Compassion means he didn't want to kill them.
Sorry, you're talking about compassion. Sorry.
Well, I mean, but it's good. We're making a contrast between the two. So that's the point that I'm happy you brought it up.
And then also Arjuna, in terms of enjoyment, I believe he was questioning how can he enjoy after killing them. How can he get any enjoyment from that? Yeah.
Right. Right. So that's enjoyment and compassion. Now, what do we mean by fear of sinful reaction? Somebody who hasn't said something yet. Tell me why Arjuna was fearing sinful reaction.
Maharaj, if he killed his like it will be his party, like his kinsman, and also opposite side, anybody can get killed. So because of killing that, all the women will be widow. So that is a sin. Because of that, he is going to go to the hell. And so this is one of these reasons.
Okay. So in this case, so what are some of the sinful reactions of this battle, as according to Arjuna? What does he think is going to cause this?
So this is one. And also, it's related. Because of this, a lot of things can be, like the women is going to be widow, they will do the bevichar, like going with anybody. Mm-hmm. So this is another one. And what else?
And Maharaj, if everybody is killed, then there will be then women will be they will be acting freely, and then there will be chances of adultery.
What else is there in the sin of the battle?
And it could also lead to irreligiosity.
Arjuna mentions that.
Yeah, it is.
That.
Yeah.
Because there's no people to carry out things. What kind of things were they? Go ahead, Arjuna. I mean, Madan.
Yeah, I was gonna say a point with the fear of sinful reactions is that he's afraid of disrespecting an elder and getting a reaction for the disrespect of his superiors.
That's another sin. There's another thing that they mention too, that Arjuna mentions.
And I have a question, because some of the things that people have listed, I would put under the destruction of a dynasty, because like when women not being protected and thing, I think can it be both, or would we have to? Okay, all right.
These categories aren't exclusive. There's a lot of overlap between them.
Okay.
So something could be even straddling 2 or 3 categories or more, So, but these are sort of distinct, different things. Compassion's not the same as enjoyment. Enjoyment's not the same as fear of sinful reaction. Fear of sinful reaction, destruction of dynasty are pretty close, but they're not exactly the same thing. So there's a lot of overlap. Also, I don't know if you all remember it, but I'm going to mention it now, and that is that there was a worry that with all these men being killed, that people would not offer food to the ancestors. So if the ancestors are not getting food, what happens?
Then they will be pratatma. It's called. Like they will stay. They're not going to be put in a mother's home for the next life.
They lose the chance of salvation if you don't offer.
Prasadam. So they won't get the chance of salvation. If they're in the, Pitraloka, they might fall down, So this is all depending on regular worship of the ancestors. We have countries like not only India, but, China and Japan that really are serious about ancestor worship, So every young boy learns that he has to do so many things for the ancestors. And they offer food. In the Garuda Purana, there's this whole story about how when the Yamadutas take a sinful person and rip them out of their body, they're being whipped and dragged, and there's nothing to eat. There's no water. It's very hot, and they're just forced to march on to the place where Yamaraj is. And but if the ancestors, not the ancestors, but the descendants, they make little balls of, I forget what it is, some kind of grains or some kind of little balls that these unfortunate, sinful ancestors have, performed. They can eat those, and then they get a little bit of satisfaction on this horrible, torturous trip to Yamaraj's kingdom, where they're finally, judged. And then once Yamaraj judges them, then they go to a hell or something like that, or maybe they go to another birth as an animal, or all the above, sometimes. So at any rate, that's part of the sinful reaction and the destruction of dynasty. Now let's talk about the last one, indecision. Somebody tell me, what does that one mean?
Not being decisive of whether he was going to to fight or not?
That's not exactly what's meant by indecision. Arjuna actually mentions this one in the second chapter. Almost all the other reasons Arjuna gives in the first chapter, but this one he mentions right at the beginning of the first chapter. So somebody tell me what we mean by indecision.
Is that he says, I don't know what my duty is right now.
Yes, in one sense, but that's kind of similar to what Arjuna said. I guess in one sense that's okay, but there's something more that I'm trying to reach. If anyone remembers that section.
Maharaj?
Yeah.
I think it is that Arjuna is doubting if he should fight. What's the point of fighting? Because, anyways, he prefers that the relatives on the other side, they can just take it over, or that he maybe should just go to the forest and meditate.
Well, actually what it says is Arjuna saying we don't know whether this is right, whether we should be fighting, whether the battle that we're about to engage in is actually moral. He's actually raising that question. Of course, Krishna wanted it, so obviously it's moral. But the question that Arjuna has is we don't know. Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. We don't know whether this is better or worse. We don't know who's going to win. We don't know how many people will die. And maybe we'll win, but still so many people will die that the net outcome of this whole battle will be bad. So this is what he's meaning. We don't even know whether this is a good thing or not to fight the battle. Okay, so
just one. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Prabhu. I'm sorry.
No problem, Mataji. Go ahead.
What is it that he specifically says that he's doubting? Is it a good thing? The words that he says? I don't have
there.
it. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'll go there. Hang on just a minute. Here is the Bhagavad-Gita. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we killed the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. They are now standing before us on the battlefield. Arjuna did not know whether he should fight and risk unnecessary violence, although fighting is the duty of Kshatriyas, or whether he should refrain and live by begging. If he did not conquer the enemy, begging would be his only means of subsistence. Nor was there certainty of victory, because either side might emerge victorious. If victory awaited them and their cause was justified, still, if the sons of Dhritarashtra died in battle, it would be very difficult to live in their absence. Under the circumstances, that would be another kind of defeat for them. All these considerations by Arjuna definitely prove that not only was he a great devotee of the Lord, but was also highly enlightened and had complete control over his mind and senses. His desire to live by begging, although he was born in a royal household, is another sign of detachment. So I think this is where basically, let me see if it mentions anything more anywhere else, but basically here it's making the point that A, they didn't know whether they would win, B, they didn't know whether how things would go on even if they won, because so many people would die. And I think that, let me see. And here he's talking about the fact that what will happen if I kill my superiors, if he kills his superiors, then that's also a sinful thing. We don't know whether that's the right thing to do. How can I counterattack with arrows men in battle? In battle, men like Bhishma and Drona, they are worthy of my worship. Respectful superiors like Bhishma and the grandfather in Dronacharya, the teachers are always worshipful. Even if they attack, they should not be counterattacked. It is general etiquette that superiors are not offered even a verbal fight. Even if they sometimes are harsh in behavior, they should not be harshly treated. So here is the indecision that Arjuna has. Is it right to attack my superiors? Is it not right to attack them? Is it right to engage in this battle? Because we might lose. It might be a bad idea to attack in battle. Also, if we win even, but so many people are killed on the Kuros side, then still that might not be a good thing. So these are the indecision. And of course, as you all have said, he's not sure whether, he should be involved in it or not, et cetera, et cetera. So this is kind of where Arjuna is about indecision.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Haribol.
And Bhaktivatsala, you had a question?
Maharaj, you just answered, because I was thinking that maybe we can add this point also, that killing your teachers would also be a great sin. So can we add this point in fear of sin? But you just answered. Thank you, Maharaj.
Right. So that all those things are Arjuna's reasons. And you see that Arjuna has pretty clear reasons. And to most people, these reasons would sound pretty pat. But Krishna is going to bulldoze all those reasons in a short time. And if you're interested in your book, your handbook, you can go to page 25 if you look in your handbook. And we have on page 25. 25. In the middle of the page there, the nice MIHPE people have given us exactly where Krishna smashes each of Arjuna's arguments. In 2:11 to 30, he defeats the compassion argument. In 2:31 to 37, he defeats enjoyment and sinful reactions argument. In 2:38 to 53, he defeats the sinful reactions argument again, and so on and so forth. So he, up at the top, you see where Arjuna makes the argument, in what verse specifically. Compassion he makes in 1.27, enjoyment in 1.30-35, sinful reactions in 1.36, 43 and 44, and 2.5, destruction of dynasty 1.37 to 43, and indecision in 2.6 and 7. So that's where he makes the argument. And then in the middle of the page is where Krishna smashes the argument. So just wanted to point that out to all of you. Now, I'm
sorry, Maharaj, I'm so sorry. What you just said, if you can just kind of repeat it just a little bit again.
Okay.
On page 25, it's shown.
Do you have page 25 open?
I have it open, yes.
Okay, right. So in the middle of the page, it says overview of second chapter.
Yes.
And this is where, of course, Krishna spends the entire rest of the Bhagavad Gita really smashing Arjuna's arguments. But here, he's giving the very crux, or the very essence of how those arguments are bad arguments. Arjuna's giving them, as Krishna says, you're speaking learned words, but you're mourning for what is not worthy of grief. So Krishna is saying, you sound good, but your arguments are useless, And then, so in the middle of the page there, Jnana, 2:11 to 30, Krishna defeats the compassion argument. Karma Kanda, 2:31 to 37, he defeats the enjoyment and sinful reactions argument. And Buddha Yoga and Karma Yoga, 2:38 to 53, he defeats the sinful reactions argument again.
Okay.
So
thank you for that. Yes.
Right. So there's a lot of goodies in your student handbook, and sometimes I'm trying to point them out so you can kind of be aware of what's available to you.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay.
Okay, so now we have this section, which is a little interesting. Oh, I was interesting. There was a person we met yesterday at the Sunday program in Brooklyn, whose name was Janus, and he wanted to come to this Bhakti Sastri class just to see it. He's a student in sociology or something like that, but I don't see him on. I gave him the link. Maybe he didn't make it or something. But anyway, if somebody pops on whose name Janus, you'll know who that is. Okay, so here is kind of an overview of Arjuna's confusion. And now we're not talking about the second chapter anymore. Now we're talking about the entire Bhagavad Gita. So what you'll notice here is that in the very beginning, Arjuna wants to give up the fight. But what Krishna is trying to get Arjuna to realize is that he doesn't want Arjuna not to fight. What he wants Arjuna to do is not to accept the fruits of his activity or the result. So he's not telling Arjuna, don't fight. He's telling him, don't try to accept the fruits of your activity. That's what you shouldn't do. So that's in 2. Then in 3, we find that this is a theme, that we find this idea of Krishna trying to convince Arjuna, no, Arjuna, it's okay to engage in activity. It's even okay to engage in warfare, which is extreme activity. Both of those things are okay, but you need to renounce the fruit. You have to do it not for yourself, but for me. Or for, in other words, also you could think of it in terms of you have to do it as duty. So that's what Krishna is trying to get across. And Arjuna first mentions he doesn't want to fight in 2. But then in chapter 3, he says, why do you urge me to engage in this ghastly warfare if you say knowledge is better than fruit of work, So that's chapter 3. So we find, oddly enough, in chapter 5, Arjuna asks almost the same question. So let's go there briefly here. So here is, I'll roar right up into chapter. This is first verse of chapter 3. Why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare if you think intelligence is better than fruit of work? So Arjuna is asking Krishna, what's up, Krishna? I thought knowledge is what you want. I thought that all great devotees, they become peaceful and they gain knowledge, so they don't do this kind of warfare stuff. This is what I thought. And Krishna explains to him. But then if we go all the way to chapter 5, first verse, first you ask me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work and devotion. Now will you kindly tell me which of the 2 is most beneficial? So Arjuna's still confused. He first made the statement he wasn't going to fight in chapter 1, and then he emphasized it in chapter 2. In chapter 3, he asks, why do you want me to fight when you tell me intelligence is what I need, or knowledge is what I need? And now here he's saying, well, you're telling me to renounce work, but you want me to do work and devotion, and I thought that was not doing violence, So he's still confused. So from from chapter 1 through 2, and in chapter 3, he explains to Krishna his confusion. And in chapter 5, he explains it again. So he didn't quite get it in chapter 5. But, more or less after chapter 5, Arjuna basically gets it. And then by the end of Bhagavad Gita, when we get to chapter 18, at that point, Arjuna doesn't have any questions left. But this is our progression here, The key here is Arjuna is being told, no, it's okay to act, but just don't act for your own material goals. If you act, but you do them for duty, or you do them for me, for the Supreme Lord, then your actions won't entangle you. But if you act and you do it for yourself, then your actions will entangle you. And that's the point that Krishna is making. Arjuna, I don't want you to renounce work. I want you to renounce the fruit of work. So we're going to say this together as a mantra, that we don't want to renounce work, we want to renounce the fruit of work. All right? So let's say it once together here. We don't want to renounce work, we want to renounce the fruit of work. Right. So let's say it again. We don't want to renounce work. We want to renounce the fruit of the work. Yeah. Okay. So that I want to have stick with you, because it's a key thing to understand what Krishna's main point is that he's preaching to Arjuna. So if we understand that, we'll be doing good. Any questions about that?
Yes,
Maharaj.
I have a question.
Okay.
Sorry. You can go first.
No problem. You go ahead. Maybe you
Okay.
ask the same question. Okay.
I had a question. It's just, can you give an example of how Arjuna gave the fruits of the battle to Lord Krishna? Like, because hearing things like that, it sounds good, but it's pretty difficult to put it into, to really understand.
No, that's a really good question. And actually, most of us have the same problem, figuring out exactly what it means to give up the fruit. Some people think that giving up the fruit means you don't do anything. You just sit in a cave naked on a mountaintop, and they don't want to do that. Or some people think that giving up the fruit means whatever you make, you give it all to Krishna, every drop and penny of it, and then you don't have anything to eat. It doesn't mean that either. It actually means to surrender the fruits of some of your activity to the Supreme Lord, and to also think about the Supreme Lord when you're doing something. Krishna will say that later on in Bhagavad-Gita. Always work for me, become my devotee, think of me, bow down and worship me. So if Arjuna is doing all these things, he's working for Krishna, he's thinking about Krishna, he's bowing down to Krishna, he's worshiping Krishna, then that's a full Krishna conscious package, then everything will work out. We all have to have a roof over our heads and some place to sleep, and we have to have some food to eat. So that's all right. Now, if Arjuna was fighting the battle, because we know probably the best way to make this very clear is imagine you see Arjuna on the battlefield. Now imagine you see Duryodhana on the battlefield. Both of them are on the battlefield. Both of them are fighting. Both of them want to win. Both of them are using weapons. But what's the difference between those two people? The difference is that Arjuna is fighting because Krishna asked him to. Arjuna is fighting because he's trying to maintain a spiritual government. Whereas why is Duryodhana fighting? He's fighting for a very different reason. Duryodhana is fighting because he wants to remain in power. That's his main reason. Why does he want to remain in power? Because of all the material opulence and power and resources that comes from being in power. So if you're the person in power, you got it made. You can get anything you want. You can do anything you want. And everybody just goes along with it. Does that make sense, Madan?
Yeah, Maharaj,
Yes.
from that connection, I have a question. So
Okay.
I want to leave everything, the fruits to Krishna, but definitely I have to work. Like here, Arjuna's activity in the battlefield and Duryodhana's activities in the battlefield. Arjuna always thinking about Shastra, whereas Duryodhana didn't care about the Shastra, what it says. So now both are actually working. Now, if think whatever Duryodhana was doing, after that, he never did it, but after that, if he leave everything to Krishna, even he was doing all madness, and leave on Krishna, the result, that doesn't make any sense. Definitely, when we work something, we have to follow scriptures, and then we can leave our result to Krishna. Not doing all madness and leave it to Krishna. So isn't like our action should be followed by the scriptures, what it says, what should do, what should not to do. So we are doing, but we're not actually following any rules and regulation, and we're just leaving everything to Krishna. So then this is coming actually not the way it should be. So the first is action, and then result. So action is not the proper way. Then result, definitely we just not throw it to Krishna. We should throw to Krishna when we do the scriptural works, what scripture says. So that is another things we need to think, like the first part should be good, then we can leave the result. But if our first part is not good, and then we just leave it to Krishna, then anybody can do anything and leave it to Krishna.
Right. Well, some people do that.
That is madness, which we should not. That's a lot of question Arjuna asking to Krishna, which is actually he should, because he knows something which is good, but now is a contradiction. So Krishna has to make it clear to him so he can go by action. Yeah.
Well, one of the things you'll find out is people like Duryodhana, like Kamsa, like Hiranyakashipu, they also knew scriptures, but they only were interested in the part of scripture that has to do with fruitive activities. So they never considered the transcendental purposes of scriptures. And similarly, you'll see people in society who may even be pious to some extent, but they're materialists. They understand scripture, but they only understand that part of scripture which has to do with material sense gratification. So that's usually the way it works. As you were saying, we're going to talk in a minute about the chariot of the body. And that chariot of the body, we'll get a little bit more into this idea that what we should do is figure out what is right, not because of what we feel, not because of what others are doing, not because of what's popular, but because the scripture recommends it. But if we do things because scripture recommends it, then we'll be okay. If we do things because we feel like doing them, we do things because other people do them, we do them because they're popular, for all those reasons we'll be doing things for the wrong reason, therefore we'll do the wrong thing. Any other questions or comments on this part?
Maharaj, I'd like to comment that intention, would that play a role initially? What our intention before we do whatever we do, being clear about the intention, knowing intention.
That's the key thing. That's the actual key thing. That's exactly what devotion is and what makes it not devotion. Two people can drive a car. Two people can cook some food. Two people can come together and talk. Even people can have sex. Even people can engage in running some political system. But it's their intention that makes a difference. If the intention is to please Krishna, and that means if I want to please Krishna, I learn what it is Krishna likes, as our Bhagavan Narahari was telling us. You can't just guess at what Krishna likes. You have to know what Krishna likes. So if you're serious about pleasing Krishna, you learn what Krishna likes, and then you try to act accordingly. So if you're doing that, then your intention is right, and whatever you do is okay. Even if you fail, it's still okay. However, if your intention is to please yourself, then whatever you do is a failure in a transcendental way, and you'll be involved in sinful reactions. Even if you succeed materially, you failed spiritually. So it's the intention that makes the difference. The difference between acting for Krishna and acting in Maya is the intention. That's the only difference. Because otherwise, on the outside, people look like they're driving cars. On the outside, people look like they're eating food. On the outside, people look like they're singing and dancing. All these things are the same, but what makes them different is the intention within. If somebody's dancing to please Krishna, if someone's cooking to please Krishna, if someone's driving a car for some purpose to serve Krishna, then the intention is right, and they are actually doing devotional service. If they're not doing it with that mentality, then their intention is wrong, and they're not doing devotional service.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj. Okay.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Other questions or comments? Okay. Do you all have a piece of paper handy there?
Yes, Maharaj.
Everybody's got something to write on?
Yes.
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a similar question to what I asked you yesterday, but try to listen carefully to what I mean here. I want you to write down something about the structure of the Bhagavad Gita. Now I'm not talking about how you explained it to a friend or how it's the best Shastra or anything like that. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is something different. I'm talking about if the Bhagavad Gita was a map or the Bhagavad Gita was a country, what shape is there in it? What happens in it? Or how would you describe how the Bhagavad Gita flows from the beginning to the end? I don't want you to do a complete description. That would take all night. But all I'm asking is what comes to your mind immediately? What do you understand, or what immediately pops out as this is a part of the Bhagavad Gita? That's a part of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita does this, and then it does that. Krishna speaks about this, and then he speaks about something else. So write it down. I'll give you about 10 minutes, and then we'll read them, and we'll see what we come up with. Everybody understand, or anybody's confused about what I want you to do?
Maharaj, we have to write up to what we have learned now, right? Or the whole
No,
thing is
you
just
can.
up to second chapter.
Yeah, you can. You can. I'm not even talking about second chapter or anything. The whole Bhagavad Gita, any part of it, anything that you've ever read about. If you just remember what we've just talked about, that's good too. But you don't have to, like I say, write a book. All I'm asking for is a couple of 3, sort of X-rays. So we're looking at the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a complicated work. There's a lot of pages in it. And so if I was going to X-ray the Bhagavad Gita, what features does it have, from the beginning to the middle to the end? If you don't know, then whatever you've learned from the last day, yesterday, and what we've talked about so far, you can talk about that. Make sense or not?
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you.
Okay, so it is 1939, so we'll give you till 1950. I should get some music or something to play, a bhajan or something. I want you to write this down because, somebody will say something and it'll erase somebody else's idea from their head, or it'll be exactly the same idea and then they won't say it because somebody else said it. But it's okay if you say somebody else's exact idea. Bing! Okay, so we're at 1950 here, according to my chronometer here. So I want to give a chance to go through all of our group here. Let me see, who do I want to start with? Let me start with Jai Radhe. Is she there?
All right, Maharaj. Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Krishna.
All right, well.
I'm not really sure what to write, but I just started with, basically it's a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. He's going through a challenge and Krishna is assisting him through this challenge. And the book is divided in such a way that basically it's about action and devotion and knowledge. And there's various major topics that run through, about God, about the soul, about our material nature, about time, and then our karma action. And and then we spoke mainly about chapter 1 being about the battlefield, and then chapter 2 being a summary of the Bhagavad-Gita itself. And that's as much as I have for now.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's exactly what I was trying to get. That type of thing. So let's hear from Bhaktivatsala in the same room.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. So, Maharaj, I have written like this, that life is full of challenges, confusions, and we have to take guidance from scriptures and saintly people who have understood these scriptures, and that will help us to be free from attachments, entanglements, karma, and when we act accordingly, then we are free from the correspondent reactions. So basically, first section is explaining about that we don't have to stop our activities, but we have to do our activities for the pleasure of Krishna, or scriptures. If we are explaining it to a normal person, then we just say for the pleasure of God, like this. And then Maharaj section, and then someone may ask that why God? Who is he? Then the section 2 talks about transcendental knowledge, who God is, how everything is resting on him, and how everything is his energies, and then how to please him, which means service, which can help us from the greatest danger. This is like the second section. And then when you have this gyan, when you have this knowledge, then how we can fight with 3 modes, and how we can fight with the demonic side of our the demonic side can be curtailed. This is about section 3. So 1, 2, 3, like that.
Well, good. That's very good. I like that. Let's hear from Madan Gopal. We'll see what we've got from him.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. I'm not sure how good this is going to be, but I only made 5 points, and
no,
the first
great.
was Arjuna was unwilling to fight. And the next is Krishna and Arjuna have a conversation. And the next is Krishna teaches Arjuna about the soul and the temporality of the material world. And Arjuna understands. And then I put Krishna reveals his universal form. And then the next point is Krishna explains who he is to Arjuna, like when he says, of secrets I'm silence. And then the last point I just put, Arjuna's illusion is dispelled and he fully surrenders and fights.
That's really good. I like that. That's a real simple overview. We haven't gotten deep into the philosophical roots here, but that's great. That's a good thing. Once we, it's kind of like we're building a bridge over a swamp, So once you get a few posts in the ground and you get a few boards there, it's still a little wobbly, but at least you can get across the swamp. So we're starting to build a mental image of how the Bhagavad Gita fits together, what it's saying. This is good. So, Bhagavan Narahari, you're on the spotlight.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I try to get little summary as not only me, we all maybe read through a few times Bhagavad Gita, not having too much understand, but whatever my understanding. So there are 3 sections in Bhagavad Gita, 1 to 6, and the other one is 7 to 12, and then 7 to 12, 13 to 18. And so first 6 chapters basically describes the living entity. It's like we are eternal spirit and we are non-material, those things. And also they're talking about Bhakti Yoga, which is to understand Krishna is the personality of Godhead. And importance of, there is also in this 6 chapters, there is somewhere Guru and disciples relation. What is the importance of Guru and disciples? That is in there. And as we already spoke, chapter 2 is the whole subject matter for all Gita, Bhagavad Gita. So this is first part. The second part, middle 6 is talking about different energies and opulences of Krishna. And here is also, it talks about relation between super soul and individual soul. And it's in regards with devotional service. So based on the devotional service, what is the relation between super soul and individual soul? And then definitely devotional service is the best for self-realization. This is like in the middle. If you go for third section, it's like this is about the contact with the material nature, with the living entity, and this is basically divided in 3 parts. Is like one is karma, one is jnana, and another one is bhakti. These 3. So until chapter 17, Bhagavad Gita already finished. So 18 is actually Bhagavad Gita summary of the previous all the structure, like everything was spoken by Krishna and Arjuna's conversation. So 18 is summary and substance. And the basic truth explained in Bhagavad Gita, like there are few things, which is Ishar, which is Lord Krishna, and then also Jiva, we are Jivatma, and then there are Prakriti, so Mother Prakriti, and another one is like time. What is the time? Krishna is time himself, and our karma. So those 5 things also spoken in Bhagavad Gita. So that's all my understanding.
No, that's very good too. That's very good. I like these answers. Pushpanjali, can you give us your explanation?
Haribol. I try. Mine is pretty simple. It's not too elaborate, but the question about the structure, I would say one is Bhagavad-Gita presents a problem, and Arjuna is the one with the problem who is in distress, and he's overwhelmed and depressed about some things. He has to fight. And then Krishna, number 2 is Krishna listens and then counters each problem, giving solution to his situation. Then I would say number 3, Arjuna listens to the counter answers. And 4 would be eventually he gives in to the solution, and then the problem is solved. That's the map I've created.
Oh,
here.
that's good. That's a good map too. It's interesting to see these. There's so many different ways you could slice the cake, you know. So it's interesting. Jeroen, can we hear your version now?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. First of all, I was thinking about, I was listening also lectures from Swayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaj, who recently got to the sannyasa order. He said actually he made a division, life, love, and leave. So the first part of is karma yoga, so the action, and it explains like how we live our life. Different difficulties like Arjuna raising all those doubts. So in this way, when we look at it, like we can reflect on our own doubts and how Krishna is argumenting that. And then later on, he explains like, okay, how when we gonna act in a good way, with what kind of attitude should we do that? And in the mood of bhakti. And then at the end, like, we do this all to leave this horrible place. So it's actually like it's very a practical book. Like it's like a real manual, like how we can deal with our own issues. So we can try to relate with Arjuna, and when we can put ourselves in the position of Arjuna, like Arjuna is like how we actually want to behave, like in this humble mood, like submissively inquiring from Krishna, okay, how should I behave? Because my mind doesn't know what to do. So how should I act? And with what attitude, and where can I go in the end, and who am I, and why do I have this difficulty, and so on. So I find it very, very practical. Like I see it often, like when you have a difficulty, you just open it, and it just speaks to you. If you can put yourself in the right mood, you can get the right message out of it for you. It's actually very personal. Just that the book, like nice manual, but very personal.
All right, Arjuna, can you tell us what your X-ray view of the Bhagavad Gita looks like?
Sure. I see it like from in the beginning, Arjuna is lamenting, and he has compassion, and that's the start of it all. His bewilderment and his confusion. And then he goes with Krishna like on a journey, and they go and they're talking, and he still has questions, and he's still bewildered, but the questions are being answered little by little. Like he doesn't just get the understanding right away. He's getting it piece by piece, and it's like one is building on top of the other. And then he finally gets it, and he fights, and actually he has no fear when fighting because he knows that he is spirit soul now. So it's an illusion. So he wins in the end, either way.
Okay. And David Damodar, last but not least.
So basically, as I see, Bhagavad Gita is a full-on treatise on different paths of yoga, where Krishna explains, starting from karma yoga, and basically explaining the superiority of bhakti yoga. But at the same time, he is also going, and he's placing bhakti yoga in the middle. But then after karma yoga, the second part is bhakti yoga. Then he goes on how jnana yoga also leads to bhakti yoga, and explaining basically like all the different path of self-realization, and in the end, where he says that just abandon all the process of religion and surrender it to me. And then at the same time, we see that it ends that Krishna says that now that I've explained everything to you, now that you decide, that in the end, God, even after thoroughly explaining, he gives to the soul, he gives to his friend the freedom of choice, the freedom of will to accept the decision and do as he needs.
I like that one too. I like it's kind of simple, but it gives a kind of, like I say, in the beginning we just want to have a very simple sort of easy to remember, easy to understand picture, and then we can gradually bolt things onto it, make it more full, more developed. All right.
Yeah,
so
another thing that I forgot to mention yet that
okay.
is also very important is that in this also Krishna proves himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead by showing universal form. And that
Right.
Prabhupada is also, he emphasizes that, that different people can say different things, proclaim different things, call themselves God, but they need to prove it. So Krishna proves it here beyond all doubt. And then Arjuna says that now I see that all the sages agree upon this conclusion, but now I see that from my own eyes. So that is also very important. So we hear the message directly from God, and it's presented here in the most perfect way possible.
All right, so that puts us at about 6 after 8. Before we go, I would like to make a strong statement that you all should read Bhagavad-Gita Chapter 2 this week, before we meet again on Sunday, next Sunday. So please read Bhagavad-Gita Chapter 2. You may have questions. You can always read with a little notebook beside you. If you run into any questions, write them down, and then you can ask me when we get back together next Sunday. And that way you'll have a little bit of familiarity with Bhagavad-Gita Chapter 2 when we hit it. That's basically all I wanted to say. So I thank you all for attending today's session. And unless anybody has a question or a comment or something, we can say Vanchakalpas. Anybody have anything final that they want to say?
Yes, Maharaj. Pushpanjali. Next Sunday, in terms of Zoom and in person, which way we're going to go forward?
I think I'm going to try another combo Zoom and in-person version. And again, remember that we have now decided it's at 10 to 1 and not like it was last week at 11 to 2. So it's 10 to 1. And it'll be at the same place, down in the basement there. And those who want to can attend by Zoom as well. So either way, you can come in person or you can come in Zoom. You'll get more out of it if you come in person. I think I figured out some of the problems we had with the combo in-person Zoom version that we did last week, and it should be a little smoother this time around. But that remains to be seen. I've thought that before, only to find out that it was wrong. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Okay. And the time will be 11 or 10? We're going to do 10.
10.
Okay,
I'll
10.
put it out again. So a 10 to 1 at Radha Govinda Mandir next Sunday. All right. Vanchakalpati Vishcha Kripasindavyeva Pamane Vaishnava Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrindaki Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.